Shalom, Lakam, Kal Yashara'al. How's your peace, Israel? Welcome back to another video. And we are in Hasafah, Shama Wa'al, or Hashama Wa'al Achad, the book of Samuel first, right? Or you could say Hasafah Achad, Hashama Wa'al, okay? And we are in chapter 26. Context is David spares Saul again, okay? And it reads on this right on the first verse. It says, Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, Is not David hiding himself on the hill of Hichelah, which is on the east of Yeshimon? So Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph with 3,000 chosen men of Israel to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul encamped on the hill of Hichelah, which is beside the road on the east of Yeshimon. But David remained in the wilderness. When he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness, David sent out spies and learned that Saul had indeed come. Then David arose and came to the place where Saul had encamped. And David saw the place where Saul lay, with Abner the son of Ner, the commander of his army. Saul was lying within the encampment, while the army was encamped around him. Then David said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Joab's brother Abishai the son of Zeruiah, who will go down with me into the camp to Saul? And Abishai said, I will go down with you. So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there lay Saul sleeping within the encampment, with his spear stuck in the ground at his head. And Abner and the army lay around him. Then Abishai said to David, God has given your enemy into your hands this day. Now please let me pin him to the earth with one stroke of the spear, and I will not strike him twice. But David said to Abishai, Do not destroy him, for who can put out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? And David said, As the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his day will come to die, or he will go down into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should put out my hand against the Lord's anointed, but take now the spear that is at his head, and the jar of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw it or knew it, nor did any awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them. Then David went over to the other side and stood afar off on the top of the hill, with a great space between them. And David called to the army and to Abner the son of Ner, saying, Will you not answer Abner? Then Abner answered, Who are you who calls to the king? And David said to Abner, Are you not a man who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not kept watch over your lord the king? For one of the people came in to destroy the king your lord. This thing that you have done is not good. As the Lord lives, you deserve to die, because you have not kept watch over your lord, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is and the jar of water that was at his head. Saul recognized David's voice and said, Is this your voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice, my lord, O king. And he said, Why does my lord pursue after his servant? For what have I done? What evil is on my hands? Now therefore let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If it is the Lord who has stirred you up against me, may he accept an offering. But if it's his men, may they be cursed before the Lord. For they have driven me out this day, that I should have no share in the heritage of the Lord, saying, Go serve other gods. Now therefore let not my blood fall to the earth away from the presence of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to seek a single flea, like one who hunts a partridge in the mountains. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will no more do you harm, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Behold, I have acted foolishly. and have made a great mistake. And David answered and said, Here is the spear, O king. Let one of the young men come over and take it. The Lord rewards every man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord gave you into my hand today, and I would not put out my hand against the Lord's anointed. Behold, as your life was precious this day in my sight, so may my life be precious in the sight of the Lord, and may he deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be you, my son David. You will do many things and will succeed in them. So David went his way, and Saul returned to his place. Context here is David flees to the Philistines, chapter 27. Then David said in his heart, Now I shall perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than I should escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul would disappear, seeking me any longer with the borders of Israel, and I shall escape out of his hand. So David arose and went over, he and the 600 men who were with him, to Achish the son of Mawach, king of Gath. And David lived with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household. And David with his two wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel, and Abigail of Carmel, Nabal's wife, widow. And when it was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, he no longer sought him. Then David said to Achish, If I have found favor in your eyes, let a place be given me in one of the country towns, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? So that day Achish gave him Ziklag. Therefore Ziklag belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. And the number of the days that David lived in the country of the Philistines was 1 year and 4 months. Now David and his men went up and made raids against the Geshurites, the Gerzites, and the Amalekites, for these were the inhabitants of the land from of old, as far as Shur, to the land of Egypt. And David would strike the land, and would leave neither man nor woman alive, but would take away the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, the camels, and the garments, and came back to Achish. When Achish asked, Where have you made a raid today? David would say, Against the Negeb of Judah, or against the Negeb of the Jerahmeelites, or against the Negeb of the Kenites. And David would leave neither man nor woman alive to bring news to Gath, thinking lest they should tell us and say, So David has done, such as his custom all the while he lived in the country of the Philistines. And Achish trusted him, thinking he has made himself an utter stench to his people Israel. Therefore he shall always be my servant. Context is Saul and the medium of Endor. In those days, chapter 28. In those days, the Philistines gathered their forces for war to fight against Israel, and Achish said to David, Understand that you and your men are to go out with me in the army. David said to Achish, Very well, you shall know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, Very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life. Now Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him, and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and the necromancers out of the land. The Philistines assembled and came and encamped at Shunem. And Saul gathered at Israel, and they encamped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim, or by prophets. Then Saul said to his servant, Seek out for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a medium at Endor. So Saul disguised himself and put on other garments and went, he and two men with him. And they came to a woman by night, and he said, Divine for me by a spirit, and bring up for me whomever I shall name to you. The woman said to him, Surely you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and the necromancers from the land. Why then are you laying a trap for my life to bring about my death? But Saul saw to her by the punishment, As the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing. Then the woman said, Whom shall I bring up for you? He said, Bring up Samuel for me. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice, And the woman said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." The king said to her, "Do not be afraid. What do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a God coming up out of the earth." He said to her, What is his appearance?" And she said, from old, an old man is coming up, and he is wrapped in robe." And Saul knew that that was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and paid homage. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Hold on one second. This is interesting. This is strange." He's saying Samuel said to Saul, but I swear, yeah, I read in chapter 25. It says the death of Samuel. Samuel died. Wow, this is strange. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Oh, I see. This is like they're consulting with some diviners. Okay. Saul answered, "I am in great distress, for the Philistines are warring against me, and God has turned away from me and answered me no more, either by prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have summoned you to tell me what I should do." And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since the Lord has turned from you and become your enemy?" Yeah, so Samuel is dead, but Samuel is consulting him in the spiritual realm. He said, Therefore I have summoned you to tell me what I should do." And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since the Lord has turned from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done to you as he spoke by me, for the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, David, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord and did not carry out his fierce wrath against Amalek. Therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will give Israel also with you into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow you and your sons shall be with me. The Lord will give the army of Israel also into the hand of the Philistines." Then Saul fell at once full length on the ground, filled with fear because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. And the woman came to Saul, and when she saw that he was terrified, she said to him, "Behold, your servant has obeyed you. I have taken my life in my hand and have listened to what you have said to me. Now therefore you also obey your servant. Let me set a morsel of bread before you and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way." He refused and said, "I will not eat." But his servants together with the woman urged him, and he listened to their words. So he arose from the earth and sat on the bed. Now the woman had a fattened calf in the house. She quickly killed it, and she took flour and kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread of it. And she put it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. Then they rose and went away that night. The context is the Philistines rejected David. Chapter 29. It says, "Now the Philistines had gathered all their forces at Aphek, and the Israelites were encamped by the spring that is in Jezreel, as the lords of the Philistines were passing on by hundreds and by thousands. And David and his men were passing on in the rear with Achish. The commanders of the Philistines said, "What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish said to the commanders of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the servant of Saul, king of Israel, who has been with me now for days and years, and since he deserted to me? I have found no fault in him this day." But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with him. And the commanders of the Philistines said to him, "Send the men back, that he may return to the place to which you have assigned him. He shall not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he become an adversary to us. For how could this fellow reconcile himself to his Lord? Would it not be that with the heads of the men here? Is not this David, of whom they sing to one another in dances? Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s." Then Achish called David and said to him, "As the Lord lives, you have been honest, and to me it seems right that you should march out and in with me in the campaign, for I have found nothing wrong in you from the day of your coming to me to this day. Nevertheless, the Lords do not approve of you. So go back now and go peaceably, that you may not displease the lords of the Philistines." And David said to Achish, "But what have I done? What have you found in your servant from the day I enter your service until now, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" And Achish answered David and said, I know that you are as blameless in my sight as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the commanders of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to battle. Now then, rise early in the morning with the servants of your Lord who came with you, and start early in the morning, and depart as soon as you have light. So David set out with his men early in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. But the Philistines went up to Jezreel. The context here is David's wives are captured. Chapter 30. It says, Now when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, the Amalekites had made a raid against the Negev, against Ziklag. They had overcome Ziklag and burned it with fire, and taken captive the women and all who were in it, both small and great. They killed no one, but carried them off and went their way. And when David and his men came to the city, they found it burned with fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him raised their voices and wept until they had no more strength to weep. David's two wives also had been taken captive, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal Carmel. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in soul, each for his sons and daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar, the priest, the son of Ahimelech, Bring me the ephod. To Abiathar brought the ephod to David. And David inquired of the Lord, Shall I pursue after this band? Shall I overtake them? He answered him, Pursue, for you shall surely overtake, and shall surely rescue. So David set out, and the 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook Bezor, where those who were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men. 200 stayed behind, who were too exhausted to cross the brook Bezor. They found an Egyptian in the open country and brought him to David. And they gave him bread, and he ate. They gave him water to drink, and they gave him a piece of a cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit revived, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, To whom do you belong, and where are you from? He said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master. Okay. And David said to him, To whom do you belong, and where are you from? And he said, I am an Egyptian servant, and I am a man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me behind because I fell sick 3 days ago. So this proves that the Amalekites still exist. We had made a raid against the Negev of the Cherethites, against that which belongs to Judah, and against the Negev of Caleb. We burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Will you take me down to this band? And he said, Swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will take you down to this band. Context is David defeats the Amalekites. Verse 16 it says, And when he had taken them down, behold, they were spread abroad over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil they had taken from the land of the Philistines, and from the land of Judah. And David struck them down with twilight until the evening of the next day, and not a man of them escaped, except 400 young men who mounted camels and fled. David recovered all that the Amalekites had taken, and David rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, whether small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything that had been taken. David brought back all. David also captured all the flocks and herds, and the people drove the livestock before him, and said, This is David's spoil. Then David came to the 200 men who had been exhausted to follow David, who had been left at the brook of Bezor. And they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near to the people, he greeted them. Then all the wicked and worthless fellows among the men who had gone with David said, Because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have recovered, except that each man may lead away his wife and children and depart. But David said, You shall not do so, my brothers, with what the Lord has given us. He has preserved us and given into our hands the band that came against us. Who would listen to you in this matter? For as his share is who goes down into battle, so shall his share be who stays by the baggage. They shall share alike. And he made it a statute and a rule for Israel from that day forward to this day. Then David came to Ziklag. He sent part of the spoil to his friends, the elders of Judah, saying, Here is a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. It was for those in Bethel, in Ramoth of the Negeb, in Jittah, in Aurora, in Sif, Sifmoth, in Eshtemoa, in Rakal, in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, in the cities of the Kenites, in Hormah, in Borashan, in Athach, in Hebron, for all the places where David and his men had roamed. Context here is the death of Saul, chapter 31. This is the last chapter of this book. It says, Now the Philistines were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines overtook Saul and his sons. And the Philistines struck down Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchi-Shua, the sons of Saul. The battle pressed hard against Saul, and the archers found him, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and mistreat me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he feared greatly. Therefore Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell upon his sword and died with him. Thus Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men on the same day together. And when the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley, and those beyond the Jordan, saw that the men of Israel had fled, and Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their cities and fled. And the Philistines came and lived in them. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, they found Saul and the 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. So they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to carry the good news to the house of their idols and to the people. They put his armor in the temple of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. But the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul. All the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan, and they came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took the bones and buried them under the tamish tree in Jabesh, and fasted for 7 days. And that is the reading to this word. I hope the reader and listening to this word will be blessed by what we've come through. So yeah, this is the changeover. This is the transition. This is where David is now. When we go into the second book of Samuel, we're going to start seeing the David taking his position as, let's just say, king of Israel. You see, what can we learn from this? Well, life is a very complex thing, and I think because of when you read such things, you see so much going on, and if you were to put yourselves in the shoes of some of these characters, how how do you know what decisions to make in order for you to come out on the winning side? And this is what I find is complex in life. Life is very complex. The amount of thoughts you can think within a day is innumerable. There's so many. You can decide to do so many different things. One day you could decide to sit down and stay indoors. All of a sudden you could decide, I want to go on holiday. There's so many different things you could think of doing, and which adds complexity to one's life. That's why I find it's important that you submit yourself to the Father, right? So that it removes the complexities of life, because you don't have to, those who try to do things and think for themselves and try to govern their lives in a manner that they feel it is right, life becomes more difficult because you don't know if you're making the right decisions or not in your life. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's what we find that the nations have done. They've made life is too complex, and because it's so complex, you've got people that are having problems with, you know, anxiety, all these different thoughts. They're not understanding that life is complex. It's very like what I'm saying is complex if you do it on your own. We weren't born to combat life on our own. You get what I'm saying? We're hooked up with our Creator. He gave us all a spirit. Now, if you discard yourself from that spirit, you're making life becomes overly complex to the point that you can look like you're doing something right, but you may not be. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's what makes people have things like anxiety and depression, because you look like you're doing the normal things that what people class as normal. You look like you're doing the right thing in life, but inside yourself, you know that something is off. There's something going on. Like you could go and enjoy yourself, drink and party and all sort of stuff, but deep down, when you're doing this every weekend, partying, and you know that you have the day after is like a very heavy day. People don't like to talk about that. You go and party and stuff like that, but the next day you've got like some sort of come down or hangover and stuff like that, and you're miserable as anything. You end up. Some people can continue drinking. Some people just have like a very chilled day, but that's like a whole day wasted. You know, just for that one Saturday, you've then got this Sunday where you're like on a you're on a low. And some people, depending on what they get, what activities they get up to, they'll be that come down or the hangover can last multiple days. And as you get older, that's what happens. These you start. It's not like when you're younger, where like when we first had that bit of alcohol. The next day you're fresh, like it didn't really phase you. You see what I'm saying? As we get older and stuff like that, it takes longer for us to reproduce these cells. So these what we class as these come downs is because we're not 100%. We're still like in that 60%, and we're waiting for the cells to get. So that's why it takes longer for us to recover. You get what I'm saying? And why am I saying this? Well, if you don't submit yourself to the Father, you're only making life more complex for yourself, because you even though because there's so many different kind of thoughts you can think of, and some of them can seem positive to you, right? But you may still feel some form of anxiety or these different things within yourself that doesn't add up to your physical world. You've got a house, you got a car, you go on holiday regularly, you know, you got children and stuff like this, but inside you feel dead as anything. You get what I'm saying? And you try to fill this void with external things constantly. You're just trying to get these external things and you're trying to fill it, but yes, you still feel empty. And that's because you're trying to combat the life desires, with material things, things that are not, they don't, they don't mean as much. If you were to go back to like the Adam's time, they didn't have cars and things like that. They still lived long, like 900 years and things like this. They live long. You see what I'm saying? So obviously, clearly, back in those times, they were living a lot longer than we were, and they didn't have as much. Yet we have so much, and we live less. Does it not? Does it not? Does it not show you something about, what's maybe the cause of this life expectancy, decline? Is that we accumulate things, so much stuff, and we are so attached to those things. Those things are actually part of us. Like it's like if you have the car, if someone was to crash your car, you would literally lose a part of yourself. You feel like uh, you're hurt. It's like someone hurts your car, you actually are hurting yourself. Like someone kicks the car, pops your tire. It's like you're actually feeling the pain within yourself. Do you get what I'm saying? But these things are objects. They're not part of us. They're things that you could use. They're tools. You see what I'm saying? So where I'm driving at here, okay, is that we have to be fulfilled, and filled with the Father's Spirit. And when we're filled and fulfilled by the Father's Spirit, then we don't need anything external for our internal and external pleasure. Because then after that, when you're filled with the Father's Spirit, when you get the car or whatever the things you want, it's just a bonus, and it actually feels a lot better than when you're acquiring these things to fill yourself, to fill yourself. You know, we use physical things to fill that hole, but that hole is supposed to be filled with the Spirit, not by material things. You get what I'm saying? I'm not sure people really get what I'm talking about, but what I'm trying to get people to understand is that you're supposed to fill yourself with the Spirit, and then all the other things you can then use while filled with the Spirit, and you will enjoy those things that you're using more. It's like, I'm gonna give you an example. It's like, this is the best. This is actually a good analogy, right? It's like when it comes to payday. Okay, like when I was younger, when we go out, we wanted to go and buy things, and let's say I had like £200 or something like that. I wanted to go shopping. I would want to go with my friends. I was like, let's go shopping, right? And I want to go and buy things, right? Now, there's nothing is good. It doesn't. It's never as good if I'm the only one that's got the money and everyone else has got nothing. You see what I'm saying? Like, obviously, you get them some food and things like that, right? But there's nothing as good as when you and your friends have both, or however many of you are, have got a decent finances to go and do shop. You're both enjoying, or however many of you are, you're enjoying that day. It's a good day for you guys. You know what I'm saying? Because you're just out and you're both, there's no limits. You're both just on a high because you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get these things. I'm gonna get that. This is what I'm talking about when I was younger. So that was a positive. It was a nice thing when we're both like we're all got money to spend. Yeah, not rather than one person. You see what I'm saying? And that's the same thing with the Spirit. It's like you need to have both things. You need to have the Spirit filled up, right? For you to then enjoy the material things. You see, so imagine that Spirit is your friend. If you don't fill up the Spirit, your friends, and if your spirit is not on the same level, you're not going to enjoy the material things that you get. You see, when I go out and if I had money and my friend didn't have money, me buying the shoes, I'll be happy. But like, you can look at your friend and like he's happy for you or whatnot, but he's not. He's got nothing to buy. You know what I'm saying? So why not enjoy the things that the Father has enabled us to have, but do it with the Spirit, your friend, your helper. You see what I'm saying? Because you'll enjoy it more. You'll both enjoy it. You see what I'm saying? So I only hope that some of you will understand the analogy I'm talking about. Is that we're supposed to seek the Spirit first, and then when we seek the Spirit and we're filled with the Spirit, then all these other things, these physical things, we'll enjoy it more. But when you look to seek the physical things first, it's like going shopping with a friend, you know, and he hasn't got no money, and you're the only one that's got money. Yeah, of course you could buy him something, but there's nothing better than you going shopping with your friend, and he's got his money. And it's not like this. And the thing is, when you go and try to give money and share, like they still feel that kind of like, oh, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not. This is not my own. I'm not doing it on my own. Like he's helping me, and it's still that. It's nothing better than you both got your bread. You've earned your bread, and you're able to go and eat. Do you get what I'm saying? There's nothing better than that. And that's like the relationship one needs to have with the Spirit, is that you need to make sure that the Spirit is active within your life, right? As long as the Spirit is active in your life, you can both eat and enjoy the fruits of the Spirit, i.e., the things that the Father has enabled us for to have. Because these things are out there for us to use. I'm not saying that people can't have a material things, but ensure that the Spirit is involved in everything you do. So may Yahweh bless you, may Yahweh keep you, may Yahweh shine his face upon you, may Yahweh be gracious to you, may Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you, and may Yahweh grant you everlasting peace in Yahshua HaMashiach's name I pray. Selah.